Okay, I'm going to tell a story about someone who had a significant impact on my life, which was my grandmother. She was took care of me as a child, and we went places together. And my grandmother was very educated, and she dressed very nice. And so she left an impact on my life because she always did things the correct way. She always did everything properly, and she cared about her children and her grandchildren. And I still think of her now, and she's been gone for years, but she was a wonderful grandmother to have. And my sister never got that feeling from her. So having my sister living with me, she was kind of jealous of me having all this love with my grandmother, and she didn't. But that's just what happened. So that's it for that part. Okay, so and then. Paint a picture of the place. My goals for this year are to get organized in my house because it's kind of a disaster here. And so that would be one of my goals. And the other goals are to take care of my little dog, who I love, who had diabetes, and so now I have that goal to take care of, to make sure that he lives and is properly taken care of. It's enough? Do I have to tell more? Like best about myself. Oh, I think I like about myself that I'm a go-getter. I do things that I have to do, and I don't complain about them. And I think that and being good to other people. Mm-hmm. Those are really important. They're my best, I guess, would be those things. Okay? Yeah, I'm not sure what they would.
Anything that had happened, like anything, like, you know, when like stereotypes that you think, oh, this person is this way, but when you start like talking to that person and you start knowing them, and you're like, oh, it wasn't what I thought.
Yeah.
It's anything like you had experienced something like that before through this year, like anything similar, like stereotype from people.
Oh, okay.
When they
so
told
now
you.
That's which one of these? I know about you just from looking at you. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't know how old I am by looking at me. And I think the other things would be that I'm pretty smart. They probably wouldn't think that I was very smart, because I have blonde hair, and they always say blondes are not that bright, So that would be
another thing.
That one. And what's the next one now? Oh, all right. I can answer that sort of. I guess when you talk about recounting an incident or time when you experience failure, I think it was I was going to Catholic school, and I was in the 6th grade, and I thought I wanted to go to Catholic school, so my dad sent me to the Catholic school. And I was there for about a year, and then I just felt like I didn't belong there, and that I really needed to do something different than what they were teaching. So I told my parents that I didn't want to go to that school anymore. I didn't want to go to the Catholic school anymore. And so they changed me back to public school, and I was much happier there and felt like I belonged more there than I did in the Catholic school.
Did you have more friends in public school?
Mm-hmm. I had more variety of friends, and we didn't have so many things like having to do religious things,
So you kind of like didn't like the religion part during that time? Like
Well, it was so, yeah, back then, you know, because that was years ago, you know, people were really, the nuns ran everything, you know, and so I didn't like the way the nuns treated some of the people in my class, you know, not me, I was okay, but she thought I was pretty good, you know, but a lot of them just didn't seem very kind and very thoughtful or anything. They were just kind of mean and wanted to go on, you know.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't care for that. I wanted to be in a mix of people, you know, different kinds of people and
Yeah.
accepting those
Everything,
people.
like
Mhm.
more ethnicity, more
Mhm.
like culture,
Mhm.
nerds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Than just religion, you know. It was a good experience for that year, but then after that I just said, no, I think I belong somewhere else.
Oh,
So off I went. Make that decision again because I did challenge a belief. Because going to Catholic school, you don't even have a choice of whether you're going to believe it or you're not going to believe it. You just believe it because she said it, the nuns say it, or the priest says it, and that's what you do.
Oh, okay. So they kind of they force you to believe it.
Yes.
And it's not something that
yes.
you
You
choose.
can't ever be who you are. You can't speak like who you are. You have to go by their rules, yeah. And it's not like that anymore, you know, for new people, young people now, it's not like that. But back then, that's the way the church
Function.
did it, yeah. They just controlled everything, you know, and some of the nuns were very nice, you know, and they were very kind, but some of them were really very strong and very, I don't know, just not really kind.
Oh, okay.
So, all right, that's, I would say, transitioning from childhood to adulthood.
What changed it? Like, how do you change from when you were childhood to adult? Like, what makes it different? Like,
well, I think you know you're starting to grow up. You see new things. You see different ways of doing something. You meet new people. All of those things in my culture or community or family are very important, you know, that you go on with your life. You can't stay stuck in the child, although some people do.
But there were any event like when you thought like, oh, this make a difference from what I was doing before to what I'm doing now, like like during your timeline, it wasn't like a moment when you think, oh, this make me see different, be different. Like a really moment, like, you know, when
well, I think, there is a moment when you realize that you're not a child anymore and that now you're going to be an adult. And so your thinking is different, you know, you don't think like a child any longer. You think like a grown-up person. And I think that is very important, you know, for your family, for just growing. You need the way you grow, you know. You have to move on. You can't stay stuck in one place.
Yeah. But there was an event, like a special event that you see it?
From in the transition from childhood to adulthood, yes, because as a child you act like a child, you know, when you're in that child place, you act like a child. But when you see that there's this great big world out there ahead that's going to be different, and then you think, oh, this is going to be wonderful because I'm going to be learning new things, I'm going to be doing new things, I'm going to be going places I couldn't go before. I'm not going to have my mother telling me or my father telling me every minute what I should wear and what I should do. And so when you get into that and you're with your culture, I guess, you know, and the people that are in that, you learn new things from the people that are in that, you know. that you never even heard about when you were a child. But as you move on, you just find more and more things that you can learn.
More important things.
More important things, yeah. You're not playing anymore. Now it's real.
Yeah. You leave the toys for the real ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moment in your life. Well, I think the happiest moment in my life was just to be grown up, you know. But to see my children grow up, my sons, you know, are all wonderful boys, and that would have been my really wonderful thing, the happiest. The saddest would be the death of my grandmother, and because she had such a big influence on me, you know, and so to lose her was really hard. And then later on in life, it was hard for me to lose my parents.
Yeah.
My mother and my father.
Which one passed away first?
Well, my mother got Alzheimer's disease, and so she went to a nursing home, and my dad had to live by himself, so I helped him, you know, in his home and everything. But then he wanted to go to assisted living, and so I got him in there, and we just left his house vacant, you know, for that period. And in the meantime, my mother died of the
For the clinic when he would take care of the Alzheimer? Or
Alzheimer. Well, she didn't know anybody anymore, you know, and she didn't. When my father died, he died in his bed. It was that was probably one of the saddest things that ever happened to me, was to take care of my dad when he was living in the assisted living, and my mother was still in the hospital. She didn't know me. She didn't know my dad, but I went to see my dad, and he wasn't feeling very well, and he said, I think I'm going to go to bed early tonight, and I said, well, are you feeling okay? And he said, well, I didn't eat very much for downstairs, you know, because he was in a really nice place, but, you know, it's sad. He was worried about my mother. So I gave him a kiss, and I remember telling him, I'll see you tomorrow. And I walked out to the door, you know, and after I got outside the door, I just had to stop and think for a minute, because I said, oh my gosh, he doesn't seem well. And I had asked him if he'd called anybody, you know, the nurses or anything, to check on him, and he said, yeah, they've been here. So, but it just bothered me, you know, and it bothered me. And so I went home, my husband was there, and I said, I don't know, I don't think my dad is doing very well. You know, maybe I should go back and see, you know, if he's okay. But they had people that checked on him. But he said, why don't you wait till morning, and then we'll both go over there. And I said, okay. So, but they called me in the night and told me that he died in his bed, in his sleep.
Really?
Yeah, he died in his sleep. So then I was just so brokenhearted, you know, because, I don't know, I remember going to his doctor's office, and I said, I just don't know, maybe I should have stayed longer with him, you know, or maybe I should have done this or done that. And the doctor said, you know, he died the way he wanted to die because he knew that he wasn't going to live. He had a lot of issues, you know. And he said it's better that he just went in his sleep than to be pain-ridden for a long time. And he said, don't worry about it. You were a really good daughter to him, and you did fine with everything you did for him and your mother. So that made me feel somewhat better, but it's still...
Yeah, your heart was broken still.
Yeah, your heart is broken. And with my mother, it wasn't quite as bad because, I mean, I lost her too, but I had lost her earlier, and she went on and just didn't even have a brain left, you know, and she was just laying in a bed. And I'd try to comfort her, but she didn't even know who I was.
Oh, okay.
So, you know.
But there were moments when she was remembering you guys
Not once she got into the nursing home, she never really knew who we were, because I would drive my dad to the place where she was, and she was there about 3 years. So anyway, we would go there to see her often, but she never knew who we were. And then one day the phone rang, and I called, and then they called. It was the nurses, and she said, "You know, your mother is walking up and down the aisle, holding hands with the minister." And they both had Alzheimer's, and they thought that my mother thought that he was her husband, and he thought that she was his wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they would walk back and forth, holding hands. Well, that seemed so ridiculous, but I thought, well, if it makes them happy, it's okay. They're not doing anything wrong. But the man's wife, oh, she was furious. So, yeah, she just was really angry.
Really?
And she said, no, she can't walk up and down holding hands with my husband, no. And yet, my dad, when he mentioned it to me, he said, well, that isn't really like your mother to do something like that. And I said, Dad, she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know. She thinks that's you.
Yeah.
And he had a hard time understanding that.
Yeah. So, but he didn't got fear.
But he went ahead and let her do that, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were married for, I don't know how many years. They were married a long time. So anyway, that was kind of a big thing for me.
Oh.
Better than I imagined it, because we came from a family that wasn't very well off. I mean, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich. And my dad worked for the school district, and my mother was a person that sold in a department store. She was.
Oh, a retailer.
Yeah.
I think. Oh. Okay.
And so they were doing that, and my sister and I, there was just the two of us that were left at home. And so I was kind of anxious to get out of there. So because they didn't have much money, and I thought, I'm going to get a job. So, I got a part-time job. In fact, the first job I ever had was really silly, because my girlfriend and I, we were young then. We were probably about, I don't know, 12, 13, somewhere in there.
Oh.
And we went over to an amusement park, and we got a job there. And we lied to them and said we were older.
Really?
And they didn't say anything, and they let us work there. And so she and I were working there, and then finally somebody caught us, and said, hey, you girls are not the age you're telling us, and you've been here making popcorn and doing all these different things, And they said, you can't, you're too young to be working here. We can't have you. Even though you're good workers, we can't have you here because you're too young. So that was the end of that. Suzanne, her name was Suzanne. Suzanne and I did that. We were just really wanted to make some money, and we wanted to have a job and grow up and,
get out of home.
Mm-hmm, get out of your home. So that was that one. And holy moly, the hardest thing I ever had to do. Well, that's, there's a lot of hard things I had to do. If I had to think of the hardest one. Well, one of the hardest things I had to do was to lose my parents. That was hard to lose my parents. But being in a little bit lighter thinking, I guess to just be out on your own and do, having to take care of yourself and do all that. And then another hard thing I had to do was to lose my little dog, who I loved so much, That was very hard.
Yeah.
He got run over. Yeah, my husband left him loose. We came out of my mother's house, and he usually went right to the car and jumped in. My husband had opened the door, but there was a dog across the street, and he ran out to see that dog, and the car hit him and killed him.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was a hard thing to go through. Even for my husband, it was a hard thing because we loved that little dog.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh.
So that was, I really never had a lot of hard things that I had. A thing that was hard to do was that my son was, my middle son was up in the mountains with his girlfriend, wife then, I think, and they were had a little cabin up there, and so somebody came up there, and he had a couple of friends too that were in that area, and one of them was living in a mobile home, and somebody came up and killed that guy, shot him and killed him, the one in the mobile home.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then they came down to where my son and his wife were living, and there were about 4 of these men. They didn't know who they were or anything, and they started shooting at him. And then my daughter-in-law, who's a Filipino, she said, we have to get out of here, we have to get somewhere. And so Stephen he had a pistol or something, I don't know, anyway. He said, well, maybe if we shoot this, they'll leave. Well, that isn't how it works. But anyway, he went out on the porch or something, and they shot him, and it went into his throat, and she was a little, Filipinos are not very big, she was a real little thing. She went and got this other gun, and she went to the door, and she said, get out of here, I don't know what you're doing here. And so she was making a lot of noise with the gun and everything, and so they left. And so she looked at her husband, and he's bleeding in the neck, and he can't really talk. So she threw him in the back of the truck. And
his
took
husband?
She did, the little bitty thing. She threw him in the back of the truck, so that she could drive him to the hospital. And she got him to the hospital, and she really saved his life, I think. She was a little tiny Filipino, I'm just shocked that she could do that. She went down to the bottom of the hill, and there was somebody there that could also help her, so they took him in there, and so then my dad and my mother and all of the rest of the family had to go up there to see him. And if you see him today, he's well, you never know he had any problems. But he still has a little gasp all the time, I noticed, when he's talking. Sometimes he goes, like that a little bit. So that was a serious thing, because we could have lost him, and they did catch those guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the one guy that was sleeping in his trailer, they killed him. They went to the penitentiary, all of those guys that were up there. I think they might have thought that they were up there growing dope or something like that. I don't know what they were thinking, but they just had a little cabin there, just dumpy little place that they just go occasionally, to stay.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, but he turned out to be a very good person, about as far as making a lot of money and doing his job. He's got a good business now. He's just fine. She's fine.
Oh, that's
So
good.
anyway, that influence on me, because she was very educated. She was very kind. She was always doing something and taking care of people, and
Yeah.
she was good.
What did she? What career did she did?
What?
What career did she did? Like what was her job? Your grandma.
Well, she didn't have a job by the time I was born, because she had to take care of my dad, was her son, and then her daughter was working at the I think my Aunt Elsie, she worked at for the government. And my grandma, she had to stay home to take care of her mother, who was almost 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she didn't work anymore after her husband died.
Oh.
So we didn't have too much with her. She just kind of took care of me and my sister, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now where are we? Have as much money as we have or anything like that, you know. I mean, we weren't poor, but we're not rich. Probably be okay, you know. I would be all right, but I never imagined that we would be as well off as we are. You know, we got our own home, we got our own car, we got, you know, nice place. So that's all I can say about that. I'm most proud of my children and how well they've turned out, you know. And so I say that I must have done something right. You know, if they all turned out okay and they all are happy and have homes, and so I'm proudest of that.
Oh.
And probably proudest of the accomplishments, you know, that I've made in it.
Throughout your life?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then, I had best friends, but I haven't gotten too many best friends here.
Oh.
Because we haven't been here that long, you know, but
Where you used to live before?
in Napa Valley,
Oh.
up north, Northern California, where they grow all the grapes in the wine country.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
So you had friends over there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I miss the French, you know. And we came down here and we thought we would like it here. Well, we do like it here, but we do miss the friends. We do.
Oh.
Let's see. Yeah, they're my best friends. They're wonderful friends, you know. They're just.
Do they visit you a lot?
They've come down here several times, but they don't come down very much. I think people just, when you're so far apart, you know, they're way up north and we're way down here. We talk on the phone a lot, but we don't really see each other that much. And especially if you work, you know, they don't take time to come down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we miss them, and we talk to them on the phone a lot.
Yeah.
And I just was up there last week. I was up and I saw my one son and his wife and friends of ours then, but I was only there for one day, so I didn't have much chance to do anything.
Yeah.
All right, so then where are we going? Anything? I can't think of anything. Is there anything you've never told anyone but want to tell me now? I can't think of anything.
No.
Mm-mm. Is there anything that you never I guess probably it would be if you had a friend or something, you know, and you have some thoughts about her, but or him or her, but you don't want to ever tell them about it. Mm-hmm. So you might talk to somebody else about that
situation.
But you don't, you never tell the person. Yeah, I guess that would be the way I would do it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's unlikely that I would ever want to tell somebody something like that. But because I'm more of a private person, that I don't, like I wouldn't talk to you about something that I didn't like about you or something, you know. I mean, I wouldn't want to hurt your feelings, or I guess so you kind of don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can think about.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be, how did you get together with
Freiland?
Yeah. But I wouldn't ask, you know, well, how'd you get in there? Or what are you doing with him? I don't know.
It's a long story, but I'm going to tell you. When I was 15, my mother made my party, my quinceañera, and he was part of my dance, my surprise dance. So first of all, he's family of my aunt, the cousin of my mother. his husband is his brother.
Oh,
So I know his husband of my aunt like from a long time already, but I never met his brother until when I got here.
Oh,
Cause they get married right here in the United States. They get together, but I was in Mexico when I moved here. My mother used to talk with my aunt. Well, they still do, but they were like going out, stuff like that. And when my quinceañera came over, my mom talked to the brother of my aunt, like he's the husband of my mother. I was, like, it's kind of weird because like I get all mixed. The husband of my aunt, his brother, so Froilan. My mother talked to Froilan to ask him if he wanna help me with my surprise dance.
oh,
So when we were practicing, I start met him like talking and everything, and he sees me to me like a good person, you know. And I start to get used to him, like talking to him, like I don't know. During that time, like I know it's a big part of difference with ages, but I still like him. He was nice. He was gentleman. He always like he always was there for me, helping with everything. And I guess what made me feel like comfortable, feel me getting like not in love there yet, but like feeling more open with him.
You could talk to him more.
Yeah, and we used to talk like a lot of things, like about my life, about my past, my everything that had happened before, and things that were going on during that time and stuff like that. So after my quince, it was a year later when I started like I made my Facebook page and I start talking to him, and you know about his life and everything. Like started knowing him no more, and like 3 months later, before a year apart, he told me, oh well, I like you, but I don't know if you're like I could be going out with you and stuff like that. And I was like, well, it could be good, but it could be bad because he was older.
How old is he?
He's 28.
Well, that's not that much older.
Yeah, I'm 20. I'm gonna turn 22 already. So.
Yeah, that's not too much difference.
So I was like, well, yeah, but you know, there are things that can be done, you know, because he was older and I was under 18, so it's against the law, stuff like that. But I was like, you know, I could, we could be friends and we could talk and everything, and we talked for about 3 months or so when he asked me out through Facebook, and my mom didn't know anything about it, and we date for around another 3 months, so it would be already 6 months dating kind of thing when my mom find out that I was talking to him. So he canceled my Facebook. He canceled my iPad because during that time I didn't have phone, so I had an iPod. So he canceled that, and she was really mad about it. So I make another Facebook and I start talking to him because by during that time I already like him, and I really want to go out with him, but it like I knew it wasn't okay, but I really want to do it. So
and how old were you at that point?
I was like 15 and a half.
Oh, yeah, you were
15 and a half, almost 16. No, it was 16 and a half, almost 17, because it was already a year after my quince. So when I was almost 17, we started talking about another